one of those little pen lights.
All right. Are you hearing me okay, guys?
Yeah. Yes.
Excellent. Hi, Lynn.
Hi, Jeffrey.
How are you, sweetie?
Where is everyone?
You know what? We got 14 households online,
Oh, great.
which is nice.
Hi,
And we have one. Come sit near me so I don't feel lonely.
Okay.
Thank you.
I wondered if I was here the wrong night.
No, well, it is the wrong
I
night
know.
because I have tomorrow night we have the Thanksgiving Thanksgiving. And I couldn't mess that up. I
thought maybe, because tomorrow night we're at Larchmont Avenue Church. Is
exactly,
that
that's it, Thanksgiving, yeah. So I didn't know, what to do, and I said, oh, we'll just make it the night before. What are you gonna do? Yeah. It's never easy.
No.
There's always too much to do.
Yes, that's true.
Right.
Even if you're not a rabbi.
Even if you're not a rabbi, it's totally correct, Doesn't matter, you don't have to be a rabbi, but you have to have too much going on.
You have to have a mother who's 111.
I told somebody that they didn't believe me. I actually told Mara. I saw Mara briefly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she was from town. And I said, you won't believe how old Linda Idor's mother is. I said, I think she's 110 or maybe 111.
You know what? On 11/1, she was 111.
Uh,
Well, she is really, she is really something.
And you know what? She still has nothing wrong.
She's still fully present. And
Amazing.
it's amazing.
Amazing. So we're gonna give it, let's see, it's 7:31 barely. We have 16 households online. We're gonna wait for Julian to come back from the bathroom, and then we'll start. Not that we're doing the TMI thing here, guys, but we're a very close congregation. We share whatever. So we just want everybody to be well. Good. Let me just do a little see right here. Who's here? We have the Landows. Rochelle is here from down south. There's Zelda. There's Arnie. There's Minna. There's Marvin. Maybe Candy. Stephen D. Stephen D's iPad. Stephen
Are they
D.
zooming for convenience or health?
Adrian.
Or accommodation?
Jerry. Karen Mark. There's Lisa. There's Marie.
I
Michelle
followed
Greenberg.
up on Wendy's tip the other night.
Okay. Good.
But they wanted someone full-time and
Well, you're beyond that now.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
As Wendy said, the Wendy's comment was the high school did you in. So.
Right. She wasn't so much. Should we check on her?
I mean, I just worry.
Okay.
I worry about people. I mean, God willing, everything is good. He should take his time.
Are you okay?
Am I tan? No. You know what? I have very olive skin.
Do you?
I do. My son Gabriel, yeah.
And Gabe has it too?
My big boys take care after my wife's family, which is
They're
very
fair.
light, very fair.
Susan was fair.
Yeah. Anybody else want to know anything about my family background? We're ready to share anything. This is really a covenantal moment.
Oh my God. Like an owl with the eye.
It's called the owl.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And here, we're just going to try. So now Charlie's going to talk. Let's see if it works just to do a test. Charlie, just say hello.
Hello.
Keep talking.
Okay.
Good to see everybody.
So it's always good to see all of you and.
It's popping up there. That's good. That's good.
Okay.
So you guys heard Charlie just talking, yes?
Question I wanted to ask. To participate, please call me at 877-207-2433. Thanks so much.
Jeffrey, is there a way that we can see all their faces?
Yeah, let's see. See if I can, if I do gallery view. Okay. The problem, do you see now, us still, I guess it depends on how you have your setting of your computer. If it's speaker or gallery, correct? So whatever you want to do is fine with me. This is our second session of Coming Home. How is Judaism a Journey Home? and we are tonight focusing on each other. In other words, coming home to ... or colon, each other. And the operative question is, how does the exchange and the dialogue we share enable holiness and sacred connection? It's not a hard question, but it's a concept we don't always actualize. So tonight, I just want to give you the foundations of why we should actualize that, and what that means in our lives, especially as we approach the holiday that's coming up a week from tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct? Yes, that's correct. It begins in, because literally right now, you should just know, I have just found the book I think should be next year's Congregational learning theme, and I just wrote 2 days ago to the author. So I try to work about a year in advance, a little less, but I think next year's learning theme will be bang up. I'm not going to tell you anything about it, but if she says yes, it'll be great. It'll be great. You'll love her, and you know who she is. This year's theme I started last year when we were in the midst of wanting to be home together. And we couldn't. And I remembered back to when I taught a course in the Hamptons, that's the Jewish Center of the Hamptons, in East Hampton, New York, for my friend Rabbi. And I used baseball to understand Judaism as a journey home. And I used the baseball writings of Bart Giamatti. So the little quote on the top underneath the heading is something that I repeat in different ways every time. Home is a concept, not a place. It's a state of mind where self-definition starts. Home is the goal, rarely glimpsed. It's about rejoining a beloved, rejoining parents to children, about putting things right after some tragedy has put them asunder. Home is about restoration of the right relations, and going home is where that restoration occurs because that is where it matters most. Giamatti was actually writing metaphorically. Remember, he was a professor of literature? Medieval, some kind of literature, it wasn't modern, at Yale, who became the commissioner of baseball. But what I think he's really writing about is the journey, is our life journey. And so, it's not a big leap to go from the idea of the hope to go home to how do we come home to each other and for each other. It's the Jewish value is chesed that we're going to hold up today. Chesed. Chesed wouldn't necessarily be the value you think about at Thanksgiving, but you should. Chesed is like the pillars of our covenant. Torah, Avodah, and Gemilut, Chasadim. When you say somebody's a chassid, what are you really saying? This could be a deep irony if you go to Muncie. They are filled with loving kindness. When I was 17 and a half, turning 18, and walking through Mea Sha'arim with my two friends, girls who had shorts on, and little Hasidic kids were stoning us, I don't mean getting high together, I mean throwing stones at us, it was not the epitome of loving kindness. So what is this loving kindness about? Judy Landau. Wait a minute. Tom Landau's walking in the building, and there's Judy Landau online. Judy,
I'm home.
At home. Can you unmute Judy and give us the it's time to reclaim chesed, covenantal love? That's sort of the basis where we're going to start.
It is time to reclaim chesed, covenantal love, as the imperative of our age, and to assert it is as the central religious value of Judaism. Chesed is different from ahava, simply love, an emotion burnished on the inside. It is emotion that translates into loving response. Chesed is the process of embodied love. Love is as love does. Rabbi. Okay.
So this is Bradley Shavi Artson, great conservative rabbi. who's much more liberal than conservative. And he was the dean of University of Judaism in LA, which was a seminary for the conservative movement. Archon makes the distinction. When you say after the Shema, what prayer do we say? Ve'ahavta, right? The Ve'ahavta. What do you say? And you shall love Adonai your God with all your mind, with all your strength, with all your being. It would make more sense in Archon's understanding for the word to be chesed, not ahava. Because ahava is a love that could be reserved for those people we love most or that deserve or merit that love. Chesed is covenantal love. We share it with each other because we share a covenant, because we're all human beings created in the image of God. That's a much harder and more challenging operative assumption. Because that clerk at CBS this afternoon that was a little short with me, my response was to kill him with kindness. I didn't really want to kill him, because I don't want to hurt anybody, but I wanted him to know how upset I was that he wasn't being nice. So the way I did it was by being nice. That is a response that comes from chesed. It's hard to do. I'm conditioned to do it. My life partner didn't do it. She let people know exactly what she thought. And most of the time it worked for her. Sometimes it worked against me, but that's okay. That's okay.
Rabbi,
So-
Jeffrey,
Yes.
Jeffrey, did it change? Did it change his attitude? Did he understand what you were doing?
You know what changed his attitude? The person behind me said, "Hi, Rabbi." That was
He said,
it.
oh my God, a rabbi, right?
And then I heard him, I think he may have said, "Oh shit." I think he said that. Which as far as I don't care, that was great. But he treated me very nicely thereafter. It was really nice. So, what's my foundation? How do we get chesed? How do we wrap our arms around chesed? How do we emulate covenantal love? You need one book, I and Thou. That's Boober. That's I and Thou. This is a special copy of I and Thou. I'll show you who gave me this copy. I have an original print copy, but this is a 3rd edition copy. Can you see who gave me that copy? No?
No.
Too bad. It says Rita Grunbaum. So this is Rita Grunbaum's copy of I and Thou, and it's very special and dear to me. We'll come back to Rita later. So we're going to read some I and Thou. I and Thou, and I know a lot about I and Thou. Why? Because I and Thou is written by Martin Boober. It's published in 1921. It's written in 1915 to 1919. It's written in response to a graduate student who came to Professor Boober, Herr Boober, at the university where he's teaching, and asked him a few questions, and then left. And there's 2 stories. He either died thereafter or was found hanging in his room 3 days after. And Boober blames himself. Not because he was directly responsible, but because he wasn't fully present. Remember, Boober is the guy in 1904, 5, 6, who, because he's so brilliant, and because his grandfather, with whom he lived, because his parents were divorced, Solomon Boober was a great Midrash scholar and lived among the Hasidim, the real Hasidim. Boober translated the Hasidic tales from Yiddish into High German, and we got them in English because of Boober. So Boober understands the essence of chesed, of loving kindness. What does he do? He writes a life philosophy that becomes among, I would say, the 3 major works of existentialism, not Jewish, of existentialism most read in the 20th century. Everybody reads I and Thou. They still read it. Many of my confirmands, my 10th graders who go away, come back 10 or 15 years later, and they email me 2 years later and say, I'm in my philosophy class and we're reading I Am Now, I can't believe it. I know this. So what is I Am Now and why is it life-changing? And how does it bring us to covenantal love? One of the Harrisons is going to start us out. I'm going to ask questions with each paragraph. Boober, and I excerpted this, by the way, and we're just going to take little bits of it. We'll come back to a little more. This is from the first section of the book. Adrian.
The world is twofold for man in accordance with his twofold attitude. The attitude of man is twofold in accordance with the two basic words he can speak. The basic words are not single, but word pairs. One is the basic word pair, I, thou. The other is the basic word pair, I, it. Thus, the I of man is also twofold, for the I of the basic word I, thou is different from the basic word pair, I, it.
So what is Boober doing? He's defining how we relate to our world. We do it in two ways. Either I, thou, or I, it. Meaning how we relate to the people who share our world. They're different. But depending upon how we relate to the other, we become different as well. All right, you're on a roll, Adrian, be a little more.
When a person says I, he means the I of I, thou, or the I of I, it. Whoever speaks one of the basic words enters into the word and stands within it. Whoever says thou does not have something for his object. For wherever there is something, there is also another something. Every it borders on other its, but where thou is spoken, there is no something, for thou has no borders. Whoever says thou does not have something, he has nothing, but he stands in relation.
Let me explain what Boober's talking about.
Please.
Any idea? By the way, it is excerpted from 2 different pages, so it's hard to understand. But again, this is classic Boober. Whoever speaks one of the basic words enters into the word and stands within it. That means my I exists in relationship. So what is an I-it relationship? It borders on something. It borders on an it, an I-it, and it is objective, meaning I get something in exchange for it. An I-it relationship somehow implies I need something from you, you need something from me, there are things involved.
It's conditional.
It's a conditional. And it's important. We need I-it relationships to make the world go round. So what's different about an I-thou relationship? Where thou is spoken, there is no something, for thou has no borders.
There's no agenda,
Good. No agenda.
no hidden
No
agenda.
agenda. He has nothing, but he stands in relation. The goal of all life, to stand in relation.
A connection.
It's about connection. By the way, I'm not giving you the answers yet. And on these, I actually know the answers. I'll tell you why when we get to the end of I know. All right, Minnie, you ready to read? Those who experience do not participate. You gotta unmute it.
Those who experience do not participate in the world, for the experience is in them and not between them and the world. The world of experience belongs to the basic word I, it. The basic word I, thou establishes the world of relation. The world is set in the context of space and time. The world of thou is not set in the context of either of these.
So now we're getting a little more clear between I, it, and I, thou. An I, it relationship is experiencing. That's a negative for Boober, or that's a mundane, objectified experience. But the word I thou is related, much higher level of being. The I-it relationship is time-bound. The I-thou relationship is transcendent. It is not limited by time. Or, when you're in it, you don't know what time it is. I use as an example with the 10th grade confirmands. I've been using it for a long time. When my wife was with us, and sometimes she still is, and my wife, right? I use the example of what Wednesdays used to be in my life, which were Wednesday morning, I went to breakfast at the diner. And I may have been the rabbi, but I wore a baseball hat, and I sat at the booth. You remember when the Nautilus Diner had those little jukebox thingies where you put the quarter in, right, and press songs? And of course, because Susan would like to embarrass me, she would sing the songs with the jukebox and want me to sing with her, right? So that's what she would do, but we were just there. We may stay 2 hours, it didn't matter. Breakfast could start at 8:30 or 8:45, but we would just hang out. And it was timeless. And because we were in relationship for a very long time, we were 16 or 18 or 20 again. It didn't matter. And so it's time, it makes time stand still because you are inside the relationship. It's transcendent. And what do the kids relate to? 10th graders will say, I'll say, when was the last time you lost track of time being with friends? And 8 out of 10 will say, camp. The last night of camp. A night at my bunk in camp. Some will say, driving on a long trip with my father or mother. Singing. Talking. Being with a friend. Right? But we can all think of those moments when we lost track. Where we were so in the moment and enjoying the moment together. It was open-hearted, affirming, non-judgmental, being fully present for another and with another. That's I-thou. Now, Minna Immerman, can you read us? Can you unmute? And we're going to go a little more. Okay.
Rabbi Circman, I couldn't print out the lesson because my printer isn't working. Will you put it on the screen?
Now, if I do that, I'm not going to see everybody, so I'll call on somebody else. I love you dearly, but I'll
listen. I'll listen.
Okay.
It's good for me.
Do you have it? Michelle, you have it? You have it, Michelle? All right.
Yes, I have it.
Can you read a person?
Sure. A person makes his appearance by being connected. The primary word, I, thou, can only be spoken with the whole being. The aim of relation is relation itself. That is, contact with the thou. For through contact with every thou, we are stirred by a breath of the thou. That is, of eternal life.
So Boober's saying something that he's going to tell us more about later, especially in the third part of the book, which is, remember, Boober is the primary Jewish existentialist. There is another one, Franz Rosenzweig, with whom Boober partners in translating the Bible into dialogic German, into the German that the text reflects the Hebrew, the original dialogue. And I'll tell you a story about their own relationship. But Boober understands that somehow, when you enter into an I-thou relationship, you glimpse eternity. That's big. That's big. Even more than that, right? Michelle, you want to read a little more? Relation is reciprocity?
Sure. Relation is reciprocity. My thou acts on me as I act on it. Our students teach us. Our works form us. Inscrutably involved, we live in the currents of universal reciprocity. The one who stands in relation shares in reality. Where there is no sharing, there is no reality. The I is real by virtue of its sharing in reality. The fuller its sharing, the more real it becomes. The
So what is Boober saying? Boober just said something transformational.
Life becomes more real when it's shared.
Life becomes more real when it's shared. Where there is no sharing, there is no reality. What does he mean? The I is real by virtue of its sharing in reality.
There is nothing without each other.
There's nothing without each other. Okay. Boober's saying more than that. What else is Boober saying here? He's talking about I-thou relationships.
I think you have to open yourself up and expose yourself.
Okay, you have to expose yourself. There has to be true reciprocal openness. Okay, I like that. So,
It's the only thing that's truly real.
right? The only thing that's true, she's getting close now. Lynn Nydorf is talking, she's getting close. So, the only thing that's truly real is relationship, is I-thou relationship. And so if we want to share in reality, you can have a lowercase r or an uppercase r reality. You do that through I-thou relationship, which you can't enter into on command. It only happens when two people are in the moment and able to treat each other with that mutuality, trust, non-judgmental presence, accepting, embracing, right? Doesn't always happen.
I think Boober felt when it does happen, that is holiness.
When it does happen, that is holiness. That's good. That's good, right? Clearly, she's hearing. I like that. And now he goes on, just finish it up. The individual vow
must become an it when the event of relation has run its course. The individual it can become a thou by entering into the event of relation. Hear this, without it, one cannot live. But the one who lives with it alone is not really living.
Right? So Boober famously said, all real life is meeting. Meaning, I-it relationships are crucial. Name an I-it relationship in your life. I'll give you an example. The clerk at CVS, that's very I-it. The grocer, the cleaning guy, your child, your husband, your partner, your mother. Keep going, right? So at every moment, we relate to the people closest to us in an I-it way. I need something from you, you need something from me, I'll give you that in exchange for that. Don't forget your responsibility, you owe me this, you told me you'd pick me up at X, whatever it is. Those are I-it realities, but if you only live in I-it, you're not really living. All real life is meeting. You have to meet the other, because the possibility exists that other will be your thou, or a thou in your life. This is the foundation of covenantal love. We're going to build on this because somehow Boober understands God within every I-thou relationship. That's how you find God. The only way you find God. Remind me to tell you a story about Boober and Rosen's 5 after. Yeah, minute.
Sorry, I'm having trouble hearing. It's a little bit echoey. Did you say?
It's echoey. Hold on a second. Let me see. Wait a minute. I'm going to go here. I have the echo canceling speakerphone, but let me try this. Does this sound any different?
Much better. Oh my God, fabulous.
Much better. I feel so good now. I really do.
So
All right.
were you saying all real life is meeting?
Yes. All real life is meeting.
Meeting, not meaning. Meeting.
All real life is meeting. That's what
Thank
Boober
you.
said.
Thank
He
you.
said it in German, and years ago, I used to know it in German. But now, I don't know what it was. But that's what it was. So I put Hasidic tales in between pieces of Boober, at least this piece, because the Hasidic tale is Boober's heart, and it speaks the reality of covenantal love, of how we come home to each other. Rabbi Charlie's going to give us this great Rabbi Moshe Leib of Sasov tale. Please, Charlie.
Rabbi Moshe Leib of Sasov tells this tale. How to love is something I learned from two Polish peasants sitting at a table in the local tavern. With each drink, Ivan and Olaf toasted one another. To your wife, to your livelihood, to your horses, to your children. Horses before children. Moved by the wine, one asked the other, Ivan, tell me, do you love me? And his friend responded, of course I love you. Then tell me, my friend, what causes me greatest pain in this life? And his friend replied, how should I know? To which he replied, if you don't know what pains me, then how can you say that you love me?
This is a wonderful and challenging story. Wonderful and challenging. What is Rabbi Moshe Leib? And remember, the original Hasidic masters, why were they so successful? When you think of Hasidim today, nothing like the original Hasidim. The original Hasidim in the 19th century had as their disciples, as their people, a bunch of peasants, mostly illiterate Jewish peasants. So how did they teach them? They told stories. And the stories got told from one peasant, one group of people to another. And so the Rebbe became larger than life because he was the star of the story. But the stories each had a key life lesson. Anybody can learn them because everybody loves a good story. So this is a story of Rabbi Moshe Leib of Sasov, the Sasov Rebbe, which is telling us something about chesed, covenantal love, which is easier said than done. What is it telling us?
It's telling you that in order to know another person, you have to know what's in their heart.
Okay, you have to know what's in their heart.
What's meaningful for them.
Okay.
What moves them.
Okay.
How they connect to the God within.
Okay. This story is saying something more even basic and challenging, which is,
What hurts them?
if you don't know what hurts me, how can you say you love me?
You have to take the good with the bad.
Say it again. Say it again.
You have to take the good with the bad.
You have to take the good with the bad. Okay.
Or the bad with the good.
Or the bad with the good.
I also think that it's describing a relationship that seems deep but is really superficial.
Right. So, right. One of the students of Moshe Leib, right, or wants to know what love is, and Moshe Leib tells the tale. He uses two peasants in a tavern, having schnapps, drinking, whatever they're drinking. And you think they're having a great time. You think they really care about each other. If you don't know what causes me pain, says one peasant, what a great moment. How can you say you love me? So now translate that to the people around us. Sometimes, I will be honest, sometimes it is impossible to know what pains the people who are closest to us. It's impossible to truly know their hearts unless they share it. And sometimes even when they share it, we're not quite sure because we're not them. But generally speaking in the world, how can we say, I'll give you an example. I got my Wednesday call from Wayne Powell, my dear friend Wayne. Wayne Powell is, of course, the Black minister, the bishop of the Straight Gate Church community. I know what pains Bishop Powell because we talk about it all the time. Because he calls me in the middle of Rachel Maddow and said, did you hear what Rachel said? Can you believe that? Right? What is that guy talking? So we both have the similar reactions. I'm clearly not a Black minister, but because he shared the depth of prejudice and racism and hate that's been hurled at him in life. And I think because he responds to it with love, transcendent, powerful love, Wayne understands and he shares it. So I know what hurts him. I know what pains him. He knows what pains me. That's taken 30 years of relationship to develop. It doesn't happen overnight. But the story's implying something. If we're not open to the people around us, if we're not willing to learn, how many times a day do you say, hey, how are you? But I don't really want to know how Lisa is. Do I want to take the time to listen to at least the next 20 minutes of how Lisa is? Oy, oy, oy. Of course I do, because I love Lisa. But most of the time when we ask, we don't want to know. It's a superficial, hey, how you doing? How are you? Oh, so good to see you. How are you? If we only listened, we would learn. And that's the beginning of chesed, of covenantal love. Not easy. Sometimes impossible, but we can always try. Now we're doing so well with time. We're gonna have time for questions at the end, and we're gonna have a discussion about a specific text you'll like. So we're building now. So, this is all about coming home to each other. I called it the family Israel. But according to Boober, in coming home to each other, we also come home to God, to the Holy One. Really? Yes. So now, who wants to read a little I Thou? Who's up for reading? Who has the text? Tom Landau's going to read a little. All right, Tom, you're going to read a little, and then I'm going to call on somebody else. Then I'm going to call on one of the Greens, or I don't know if Jerry Fenard has the text. One of you guys. If you have the text, okay, good. I'm going to call on Jerry after I call on Tom. So Tom, start us out. No, Tom, you're a page ahead of us, buddy. You should be in search of the eternal vow. This is now from the third part of the book of I Thou, Boober. It's close. Right? The extended lines of relation all meet in the eternal vow. Already Boober is blowing our minds, because he's saying somehow that your relationships lead you to the eternal vow. That is the holy. Go ahead, Tom.
Every particular vow lives through to the eternal vow. By means of every particular vow, the primary word is that eternal vow. The influent vow is realized in such relation, consummated in none. It is consummated only in the direct relation with the vow that is by its nature cannot become an it.
Stop. So what is he saying? What is Boober saying? What's he talking about? He's talking about God somehow. Every particular thou is a glimpse through to the eternal vow. That means when I'm in an I thou relationship with another human being, or an I thou moment,
That's where God is.
right? Somehow I get a glimpse of God. I get a taste, a feeling of that holiness. Minna.
God is the space between the I and the thou. God is in the space between the I and the thou.
I love that. I love that. Boober wouldn't say that exactly, but the implication is beautiful. I love it because one of my three prepositions that defines God is between, right? Within, between, beyond. That's my theology. That's all you have to know. 3 words. So between, yes, the betweenness for me is sacred. Boober isn't quite saying that. He's implying that we enter into relationship, and through that relationship, we get a glimpse, not between, right, of God's presence. But for Boober, God's presence isn't what we think it is. Remember, Boober is the ultimate existentialist. I know all this, full reveal, you know this, or you may remember, because my teacher of Boober at Boston University was Nachum Glotzer. Professor Glotzer was Boober's note-taker from 1916 or 17 to 1926 before he came to America with his PhD. So I learned Boober from the guy who was Boober's note-taker and editor on his works. Professor Glotzer would teach us that Professor Boober, Herr Boober, understood that when you enter into true relationship, that's as close to God as you can get. Boober was partnered, as I said before, with Franz Rosenzweig. They were writing the translation of the Bible in German in a dialogic manner. And they also, Rosenzweig was the head in Frankfurt of the Lehrhaus, the free, open adult learning society, to try to renew the Judaism of German Jewry, because in 1921, he felt that German Jewry was in trouble. He didn't know the half of it. But after the opening of the Lehrhaus, Rosenzweig started to get sick. And even though Boober and Rosenzweig would get together, Berlin, Frankfurt regularly, and correspond, because we have the letters which Glotzer published, Boober ended up coming to Frankfurt more and more and more. By 1924, Rosenzweig, they didn't know what it was at the time, had use of 2 fingers and one eye, maybe. It was Lou Gehrig's disease. But he could still type, and he could still, he could write a little bit with the hand. And the story goes that Boober in the room with, get who's in the room? It's Friday afternoon. Rosenzweig wants to daven mincha. He's a traditional Jew who came to tradition. Boober is a secular Jew, but grew up in an Orthodox house, his grandfather's. Boober doesn't believe any of it. Boober smokes his pipe on Shabbos, taking a walk. He eats treif. He doesn't care, because God isn't commanding him. God is in dialogue with him. That's how he understands God. Rosenzweig understands a commanding God. But the story goes that in the room is Rosenzweig, Glotzer, Rosenzweig's wife, Erich Fromm, and Boober, right? These are the guys who were teaching in the Lehrhaus. There may have been one other person in the room. I don't remember.
There was Eugen Kohlmann, my teacher.
Okay, I love that. I love that. I love that. So they can't find his Seder, his prayer book. And so what does Boober do for his friend Rosenzweig? He davens the service by heart, as Rosenzweig mouths it, can't really say anything, but sings along and sort of smiles. That is the ultimate I thou act. It's not for him, but because of his relationship, he davened it by heart. It wasn't the way he approached God, but because his friend wanted it, that's all that mattered. So now, how is I thou a glimpse of the eternal vow? Jerry, keep us going. To step into pure relation. Just got to unmute, Jerry. Now, for some reason, you're still muted. Wait a minute. Oh, there you go. There you go, Jerry.
To step into pure relation is to see everything in the thou. Pure world, their God, is the language of it. But to include the whole world in the thou, to include nothing beside God, but everything in him, this is complete relation.
A little more.
In every thou, the eternal voice sounds forth. The relation with man is the real simile of the relation with God. In it, true address receives true response.
right? So Boober and Rosenzweig had a correspondence. In fact, it's in a book called On Revelation. And their correspondence, a lot of it, and they're these so personal letters, but what are they writing about? How they understand God at Mount Sinai, commanding the people of Israel the 10 Commandments, and what revelation is. And Rosenzweig says that after the first 2 words of the first commandment, Anochi Adonai, the rest is commentary. But it's the commentary of a commanding God. Boober says, all you need is Anochi. What is Anochi? I. Because that helps you enter into a dialogue with the Holy One. And your life is a dialogue with others that reflects or echoes a dialogue with the Holy One. The deeper you climb into a relationship with the other, the more God is present. Which is why he says, the relation with man is the real simile of the relation with God. So where do you find God? How do you get God through this covenantal love? Finish it up, Jared.
One does not find God if he stays in the world. One does not find God if he leaves the world. But the one who goes out with his whole being to meet his vow and carries to it all being that is in the world finds the one who cannot be sought.
Yeah, right. So did Boober go to the sanctuary or the synagogue to pray? No. Are you kidding me? No. Boober talked to people. Remember, Boober's a rebel. When Boober moves to Israel and begins to teach at Hebrew University, he writes an essay in 1948-49 called Hebrew Humanism. What was it about? A binational state. His home was pelted with eggs and rocks. 1948-49. Boober's talking about a binational state.
Unbelievable.
Because we're Jews, they're Arabs, we come from the same house. How can we not be in dialogue with each other? How can we not try to understand each other? Covenantal love is the aim. Boober believes that through covenantal love, the Holy One is present and appears. I give you another Hasidic tale to underscore what covenantal love is about. You'll tell me why this, to me, is the ultimate tale of covenantal love. Do one of the Greens want to read? Whoever feels up to it. On the eve of the Day of Atonement.
When the time had come to chant the Kohelet Day, everyone was gathered together in the synagogue, but the rabbi was nowhere to be seen. As everyone waited patiently, one woman thought to herself, "Let me just run up the street to check on my sleeping child. I'll be back by the time the rabbi arrives." So the mother ran home, and before entering the child's room, listened at the door. Everything was pin-drop quiet, but as she turned the knob to peek in, there was Rabbi Moshe Leib of Sassov, holding the child in his arms, fast asleep. He softly explained, "I was rushing to go to get to shul, but as I passed by your door, I heard a child crying. I stopped, and as I entered, he seemed to be scared. So I rocked him, and we sang together, and he fell back to sleep. But by then, I had already forgotten what day it was."
Right?
Interesting that this story is not only told about Rabbi Moshe, but it's also told about the Salam.
Right. It's told about a number of rabbis have a similar story. Good motif. What's the motif saying to us?
My turn.
How does covenantal love?
The holiest
rabbi-
encounters.
The holiest, say it again, Andy?
The holiest encounters are the ones where with other people. The holiest encounter, that's where you find God.
Okay. Something more.
Timeless.
Timeless, good. It's really it's very I thou in its framing.
Maybe it's more,
Say it again, Elise?
maybe what's most important is not rushing to do all these things that you're supposed to do in your day, but to see what needs to be done with these connections.
So maybe most important isn't rushing or getting, right, all these appointments done in your day, right? Rabbi Joy Levitt, who I believe is still the head of the JCC in Manhattan, brilliant rabbi, really wonderful leader, is in this book and also in his previous book, The Relational Handbook. This is Ron Wolfson, the great Dr. Ron Wolfson, who was the founder, co-founder with Rabbi Larry Hoffman of Synagogue 2000. It's all about the importance of relationship as the foundation of Judaism. And Joy Levitt is quoted as telling her staff, asking them to assess how well they're doing. And they all come back with a sheet of programs, effective programs, et cetera, revenue, et cetera. She says, I want everybody to block out 2 hours in their day, 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour in the afternoon. I want you to walk out in the hall and talk to people. That's it. That's success. It's not about programs, it's about people, says Ron Wolfson. It's about relating. It's about being present. It's about, so if you have so many appointments in your day, you can't be fully present. What's your day about? What are you doing? Minna.
Also, the Rebbe is saying Kol Nidre is fine, but it was more important to comfort this child. That was what was more holy.
And this wasn't Shabbos morning, by the way.
That was Kol Nidre.
This is the holiest day of the year. They're trying to make a point. The Hasidim are trying to say, ritual is fine. Being high and holy is very important. But you know what's more important? A crying baby.
Caring about another, really caring about another human being, and where you lose yourself in, as you were saying, lose yourself in time so that you and they become one.
So now let me redeem my wife. So many times, not once or twice, 30 times in my life, maybe more, probably more. We were going someplace and something happened where somebody else, it was a need. And what would she do? Stop and help them, which always got me so frustrated. I'm thinking, we got to get to this thing by 3 o'clock. What are you doing? Somebody's dog in the neighborhood is loose. What does she do? She starts making us run after. I don't know. A little kid had a bike accident. Before there was a Starbucks where Starbucks is, wasn't there a luggage store someplace there? Yeah. A luggage stop or something, right? Yes. So there's a luggage store. It must be 25 years ago. The little boy has a bike accident. Everybody's rushing by. We're supposed to be someplace. She stops. She says, run to the car, get me my thing, my scarf. I'm gonna use it as a Band-Aid. She wraps the kid in the Band-Aid, waiting for the ambulance to come or the police. And he's crying. And she said, stop, you're fine. What's the problem? He wasn't supposed to be going for a bike ride. He told his father he wouldn't ride his bike till later. He's so afraid his father's going to take away his bike. What does my wife say? We're going to wait here. I'll talk to your father. And we did, because I didn't tell my wife no. So she was doing the right thing. She didn't care about time. She didn't care we were supposed to be at some rabbinic thing. It didn't matter to her. She was doing what God wanted her to do. She was being fully present for another human being. So she taught me immeasurable lessons. I'm not as good at it as she was, but I'm much better than I ever used to be. So what's the point of covenantal love? Why is it so crucial? And how can we embrace it even in the coming week, which may be the most crucial moment of our time, our chance? Lisa, have you read yet? Read that paragraph. Why is love the antidote to fear and hate? This is again, Rabbi Bradley Shavit Artson.
Why is love the antidote to fear and hate? Scripture tells us, Olam chesed ibneh, I will build this world of love. The cosmic force of building a new and better world is love. Supernovae give of their core to spawn new generations of galaxies and to forge the elements that make life possible. Love is the engine that drives life's expansion toward greater consciousness.
It's not a small thing. By the way, if you want to read a book of theology that is he calls it a process theology, very much like Harold Schulweis. It is Bradley Shavitz Arson's God of Becoming and Relationship. Good book. Good book. Thick, but a good book. And he has a whole chapter on how science, in its essence, is a reflection of chesed, covenantal love. Love is the engine that drives life's expansion to a greater consciousness. That fully aligns with Boober. What is it telling us about covenantal love, about chesed? The more we're able to bring love into the world, the more open, the more gracious, the more giving the world becomes, and thus, the healthier our planet. It's a fuel-efficient model. The word fuel is in quotes because fuel is the love that drives humanity or humankind. We don't generate enough love. The Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King taught the greatest power we have, right? He wrote an essay called The Power of Love. And he differentiated between two different Latin words for love. What is all of this telling us? If you encounter conflict, if you encounter hate, now, unlike, just to know, when Boober in a different book, I have it downstairs, I don't remember the name of it, but it's essays by Boober. One of them is Boober's essay in response to Gandhi in 1947. It was after the Holocaust. But what did Gandhi say in 1944? That Jews who are, trying to be taken should just give themselves over. They should just lay down on the tracks and be slaughtered, or they should, that is the only thing they can do. And Boober said, hell no. Jews aren't going to give themselves up to be killed and slaughtered. So even Boober understood there's a time when love doesn't conquer all. In the face of senseless, causeless, baseless hate, we have to stand up and defend ourselves. But hopefully that will not be the tenor of the Thanksgiving gathering you share. And so how can we respond around the table? Let's say, for example, that you're in a family which grew up in northern Massachusetts, and most of them are now in southern New Hampshire. And some of them may have different political opinions than you. And those things may come up, or maybe not. Or you name it. All those points of contention, how do you respond is the question. Can you summon covenantal love? It's a tall order. Here's my favorite. It's my teacher and ours, Rabbi Larry Kushner. I'm going to read a little bit, then I'm going to ask you what he's talking about. This is from his book called The Book of Words. He has a 2-page entry where he basically redefines a key word based on his sort of psycho-spiritual, mystical definition. This is his definition of Yisrael, which happens to be the name we all share. Home is where they have to let you in simply because you are you. And family are the people who live there. They are the ones whom you get whether you like them or not. In the last tally, they may be all any of us have. As Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz is once alleged to have quipped, the worst thing about being a Jew is that you have to associate with them. Steinsaltz, by the way, is the great Baal Tshuva. He's the born-again Jew who became very traditional, became a Talmudic master, and is still alive. Is Steinsaltz still alive, or did he die? I don't remember. But Steinsaltz did the modern Hebrew translation of the Talmud so we can understand it, and it was translated into English. So I have about half of it downstairs. It's the best way to learn Talmud. And now he's going to relate this to congregational life and then back to our family lives. It builds the bridge nicely to my next session. The power of congregational life comes precisely from this involuntariness of association. We look about the room and realize these people are not our friends. We do not agree with them about much, but these are the people we are stuck with. The often cited teaching of the sages that, in Hebrew, Kol Yisrael Arevim Ze Bazeh, all Israel are intermingled with one another, probably means something more like we are all stuck with one another. This generates a kind of love, both more intense and more complicated than the voluntary variety. Now he's going back to family. For this reason, the place where you grew up with your family, where you became who you are, is called home. Every subsequent home is really only a pale replica of your first home. In this way, every table at which you sit, every place you live becomes sacred. What is he saying about the nature of family and how coming home to each other, even in a family setting, can maybe bring covenantal love to life? What's he saying? Pretty good. Well, if the love we share is not voluntary, meaning, of course we love you. You're the family. Of course I love you. I may not like you that much right now. I may not think what you're doing is really that smart or agrees. I think you're a nut, but I love you. So that is both more intense and more complicated than the voluntary variety of love. But he's saying something else. The Hebrew text, Kol Yisrael Arevin Ze Bazeh, all Israel are intermingled with one another, really means we're all jumbled up together. When you want to bake a cake and you want to mix it up, the word arevin is the word you would see in the recipe. Mix well. So what do we mean? We are the ingredients of a cake. Sometimes the ingredients mix really well, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes the cake comes out and it looks like Julia Child made it. Is Julia Child a good cook?
Yes.
Okay. Right? Sometimes it ain't so hot. It's a little tilted. It fell in on the side. So it needs a little repair. We are all mixed together. We are all part of each other. If we know that, love is the foundation that not only makes it possible for us to be together, but it makes me who I am in relationship to you. It's not easy. It's not easy. How many people here? Say it again?
It's a very tough sell, Rabbi, when we go to the Wailing Wall and the poor women of the wall are being pelted and attacked and beset by the ultra-Orthodox who take issue with their right to even be there. So it's very hard to say we're all in this together and we have to accept each other because we're family. It's very difficult. I'm not sure how they...
No, no, Andy, just to clarify, Andy, he's talking about, notice what Kushner does. He defines family as Yisrael. So that's his definition. He's using the idea of congregational life, people who choose to connect to a congregation, as the model to understand what I would say is home, and what home means, and what coming home can mean, and what existing in a home can mean. He's not talking about the denominational strife and struggles within the greater Jewish family. He's not meaning that at all. And I would say to you, you're right. And this session is not about that in the least. This session is about, okay, here's where we're ending. It's going to be Thanksgiving in a week. You're going to be around a table. God willing, you'll be with family. Hopefully you still love them to a degree. Hopefully you love them a lot. There are going to be people there who are harder to love and even harder to like. What's the antidote? The response of tradition, and not so much tradition. My response is chesed, covenantal love. It's opening your heart even when it's hard. It's thinking, what pains her? Why is it that she feels, he feels, they feel hurt? Why is it so hard for him to be here? Trying to understand that other person, and I'm not saying we ever will fully understand, but trying to understand, or opening yourself to the possibility that your way isn't the only way, is a big deal. That is the beginning, the entry point of an I-thou moment. Questions, comments, I put a lot on the table. By the way, in the meantime, about 40 people showed up in the room, so I just want you to know. Any questions, any comments? You guys are so good. So I'll leave you with anybody. I don't want to preempt anybody. I'm going to give you my last story.
Can I
Yes, Lisa, please.
I just think you're amazing how you can do this with so many people, Jeffrey. See people this way.
You know how I can respond with chesed?
No, how you can put an I-thou relationship with so many, to be present in that way for so many people. It's amazing.
I thank you very much. I appreciate it. By the way, I'm not running for office. So yeah, no, but you know what? Think about it this way, Lise. It's so much more effort to be hateful. It's so much, it takes so much more like stuff, and hate makes you, being nasty, being non-responsive, being cold, I think that it makes your insides sort of yicky. So I think,
I don't even mean the loving kindness. I just mean how you seem to understand people's souls.
You know what? I'm a really good listener. I don't see outsides, I see inside. So it's just my nature, but thank you. I think we all can do it. And I think we all have the ability. Again, the next time you actually say, so Mark, how you doing? Stop to listen. Because Mark has something to say. Sometimes I say things like, hey, you know what? If you want to talk, I'm always here. And then what happens? That person calls me and I have to spend an hour and a half talking to them. And you know what? It's great. Because they teach me something about me and about life and about the world that I may not have known or recognized. That's why I'm here. I can always learn the next line of Torah or find the commentary. That's always easy. But to spend quality time with another person in pain or celebrating, that's what life is for. So
Jeffrey,
when yeah, please, Carol.
go back to the beginning. Olam Chesed Yibana.
Yes,
I will build this world with love, and you must build this world with love.
that's it.
We sing it all the time, and it's where we have to come from.
Yeah, it's what Larchmont Temple as a congregation is about. What does it mean that we're a covenant community? It means that we have a three-pillared covenant, but it means that we are in a relationship with each other, whether we want to be or not. We have to be here for each other, even when it's hard.
But can I just,
Jerry.
okay, so I'm contrarian, not contrarian, but a practical person. Time is finite. It's really tough to be present for everyone, because then in some ways you can't be present for the people who really matter. And so that I think what I struggle with sometimes is being choiceful with when I can be present. And by the way, also not depleting myself, because at some point you can be present for everyone else and then you're just depleted at the end. Anyway, being a cynic.
No, Jerry, I love that. And in fact, I would say to you, this is no small thing. The Musar rabbis, right? The rabbis of sort of the ethical self-help, self-improvement system created by 3 Lithuanian rabbis in the 19th century, the Musar folks. The Musar rabbis actually ask this question and demand that say one of the midot is balance, meaning you really have to listen to what Hillel said. If I'm not for myself, who will be for me? If I'm only for myself, what am I? You have to strike the balance. And what family comes first? You have to take care of family. By the way, I'm guilty of this, especially as a young rabbi. It was much easier for me to take care of that family, those people, their problems than mine. But thank goodness I had a life partner who said, you're home at 6 o'clock. We're having dinner. The kids, you're putting them to sleep. That was it. I was present. Why? Because I learned I needed to be present, right? So being there for the people who matter most is sometimes hardest. But being there for them means the world. And it doesn't always, by the way, even though I will say most of the time, my being there for the other people, Lisa, as you mentioned, fills me. Sometimes it is depleting and exhausting. Do a funeral with a needy family. It's hard. It's the most important thing we can do and that I can do as a rabbi, but it's hard. So after it, I have to watch a baseball game and eat something good and hang out with my family. But that's good. That's okay. So it is a balance and you can't help everybody. You have to make those choices. But if you're open to it, you never know when an I thou moment might happen. And those I thou moments, I really do believe, are glimpses of God's presence in the human face. Folks, I appreciate all your time. I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. I hope you build your world with love, even if it's not that easy. And I hope you know that we are always here in support of your efforts to make the world a little kinder. If you're doing nothing tomorrow night or you want to be part of it, Larchmont Avenue Church, our interfaith community, Larchmont Mamaroneck Thanksgiving service. All the clergy from Larchmont Mamaroneck will be there. I think I'm giving the benediction. You know what? I think I'm going to tell a story. You just convinced me. I know what story I'm going to tell. I just realized. I'm going to tell a story.
Rabbi, is it 7 or 7:30?
Yes.
Do you know?
7.
I think it's 7. I think it's 7.
Cantor told us last night it's 7.
Thank you. Thank you.
I knew that.
The singers have to warm up at 6:15. So
okay, 7.
7.
Okay.
I'll be there right on time.
Okay. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thanks, guys. Be well.
Thank you.
Thank you.